I got to try harder to get
Yeah.
more is actually an energy that's counterproductive. I got to open up and give the best so that I can receive the best.
On this episode, we have Dr. Frank Anderson. He's a trauma expert, he's a Harvard educated psychiatrist, and author of To Be Loved.
I have this
Yeah.
internal drive in me that wanted to succeed. Like
Yeah.
now, honestly, Alex, I wouldn't change a thing because the impact I have on people is because of what I went through. Heal your history so that you're helping from a clean, clear place. If you're angry, if you're trying to screw people to get ahead, that's what you're going to attract. If you're doing it for good intention, more of that's going to come your way. Clean and clear your path so that you can rise from a pure place.
What's going on, everyone? I'm Alex Quin, and this is another episode of the Hustle Inspires Hustle podcast. On this episode, we have Dr. Frank Anderson. He's a trauma expert, he's a Harvard educated psychiatrist, and author of To Be Loved, a story of truth, trauma, and transformation, which launches May 7th, 2024. What's going on, Frank?
It's good to be here, Alex. Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited
Hey,
about this conversation.
I'm excited about it too. How are you feeling in regards to your book launch?
Pretty overwhelmed, if you want to know the absolute truth. Like,
Yeah.
I'm somebody who's kind of been in the field for a long time. I teach therapists, I do workshops. Like, I'm a teacher and an educator.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been doing that for years and I travel all around. This is a whole different kettle of fish for me. Like, to write a memoir about my personal trauma history and like putting all the details of my life into this book and then putting that out to the world is a whole different thing, you know? So parts of me get panicked at night, like, holy crap, I can't believe people are going to know this about you.
Yeah.
And other times I'm like, this is exactly what the world needs right now. And I'm happy to be the one to share the complexity
Yeah.
of from trauma. So that's what I experienced.
Well, you're an artist, right? And you share your experience. Some people do it in music, some people do it in poetry. It is what it is, right?
That's exactly right. And it is the next right thing. I know that because I'm really moving outside of the world of psychotherapy, outside the ivory tower of academia and research, because I
Hmm.
really feel compelled to bring this message to the world, to the general population. So it's the next right thing.
What inspired this memoir? Was it maybe just people see like really connecting with your experience as you like talk to them, as you help them, and then maybe you said I finally need to put it into a book or share my story to help the masses.
Yeah, it was interesting because I like I said, I wrote a book probably 3 years ago now called Transcending Trauma. And it was a
Hmm.
book for therapists and psychiatrists and coaches, neuroscience, IFS therapy, which is a certain kind of psychotherapy, and healing trauma or complex PTSD. So I wrote that book for like, educators and things like this and teach all over the place. And as soon as that book came out, it did pretty well. My publishers reached out to me. And, in my book, I put little snippets of my personal life throughout the book. So it was kind of, I mixed some of the stuff that I talk
Hmm.
about. I personally like say, hello, everybody. I'm Frank Anderson. I teach about trauma and I'm a trauma survivor. Like, it's just kind of who I am. Right. So
Yeah.
they kind of took it and ran with it. They're like, hey, Frank, why don't you write a memoir? I was like, what? Like, I'm not 80. Like, I didn't win a Nobel Prize. Like, why the hell would people want to hear my story? It was kind of surprising. But as I
Yeah.
thought about it a little bit more, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I do have a story to tell here. And if my story can help other people learn about healing, I'm all in. So it was really my publisher's suggestion. And it took me a while to kind of get it, but I get it now. And I hope it'll be helpful.
Can we talk about your experience with trauma?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's break that
Absolutely.
down.
Yeah. Yeah. I have, boy, it started early, like really early. It's part of what I talk about in the book, but it was weird. I always knew that if I would ever talk about my life, this is how it would open. Like this moment was etched in my brain early on, well before a memoir came about. I was 6 years old and my parents kind of walked into their bedroom and they're like, hey, Frankie, you're not going to school today. I'm like, what? I love school. I was one of those nerds. I loved going to school. I wasn't sick. It wasn't summer vacation. I was really confused by what the hell they were talking about.
Mhm.
6 years old, we get in the car, drive out of our little suburb in Chicago into downtown, all the big buildings. I remember looking at all these big, huge buildings. What's going on? Where are we going? They pull up to this hospital. I'm like, holy crap, I must be really sick. And at the time, I had a day of psych testing. And then after the test, I wasn't having lab tests. I was drawing pictures and looking at ink blots. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I
Mhm.
suppressed a lot of it, to tell you the truth. But after that day of not going to school, I spent 6 years weekly in therapy. I went to a special meeting that was a big secret. Our family wasn't allowed to tell anybody. And it was in that it's weird, Alex. I have two memories of 6 years of weekly therapy, which is crazy because I suppressed so much.
Yeah.
But I remember was, you have to play with these toys, Frankie, not these toys. This is the way you're supposed to act. This is how you're
Trying
supposed
to
to be.
condition you. Yeah.
I was totally conditioning. It was
Yeah.
actually a form of conversion therapy, honestly, is what it was. My mom will say that now, like it wasn't what she was intending at the time, but I got caught in my cousin's basement playing with the Barbie doll one time. And this was a big, huge red flag for my family. Back then in the day, it was a mental disorder to be gay. So they found me playing with the Barbie doll. They sent me into therapy for 5 years to act like a normal boy. you
Hmm.
know I remember like watching my uncles, like, oh, act like that, be like that, do what they do. Like I lived my most of my childhood like suppressing who I was and learning how to be what other people wanted me to
We're telling
be.
you to do and be. Yeah.
Totally, totally. In the midst of all that, my dad was pretty verbally and physically abusive of me, which I didn't understand at the time. Like, why the hell is he beating the hell out of me? Like, I didn't get it. So I had a lot of trauma and
Yeah.
confusion. Like, I was wrong. End of story. That was the message.
Understood. At at what age did you realize that you wanted to take this career track? Because obviously it's tied to what you've lived, right? But when did you realize? Was it like high school? Was it earlier on, later on?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I had a very close family member who became psychotic. She was a teenager. I was in college. And sitting at the kitchen table and having a psychotic episode just devastated me, really devastated me. I never saw anything like that before. And so many years ensued of getting her the right treatment and all this kind of stuff. And it was kind of that moment I was like, oh my God, like I have to help people in pain. I had no idea it was about me also. It
Yeah.
was really about my family member. And that was the first, like, my dad was a pharmacist. I was going to go to pharmacy school just like him. But after that episode, when my, a family member became really psychotic and had a bipolar episode, that I was like, I have to do something about that. So I
Yeah.
switched from pharmacy to pre-med. I was doing really well in school. I was constantly looking to get approval. The To Be Loved is the title of my memoir because that's what my whole life was organized around. So I always
Yeah.
got straight A's and all this kind of stuff. So I
But
was,
more, I guess more loved than more accepted, right? Because with
yeah,
acceptance
I
comes love.
didn't know at the time. I didn't know I was looking for love. I was looking to be accepted. That's exactly right. Now I
Yeah.
know it's about being loved,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
At the time, it was like, what can I do to get him to like me? Mostly my father. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
I mean,
So
I guess not most boys like look to
yeah,
their father as their hero, want to make them
every
proud.
kid. Yeah. Every kid wants their parents to love them. Like that's a
Yeah.
universal thing, right? We all want that. So, but that was the first thing that kind of had me shift. Like I was always fascinated about the human body, but I was like, I have to help people in pain. Like I remember that. So I switched into pre-med, got into medical school, and I thought I was going to be a pediatrician because I always loved kids. But
Right.
then not this the same family member went missing for 3 days, had a psychotic episode and went missing. It was another huge event, and I was like, oh my God, I have to become a psychiatrist. And it was only then, honestly, that I started my own therapy, and I got into Harvard. I became in psychiatry residency program, got into Harvard. It's like, ooh,
Badass, bro.
Frankie's going to Harvard. Frankie's going to Harvard. Like it was like leaving Chicago and gotten into Harvard.
Like, what now? What
And I was still like, thinking, oh, this is gonna get the love and approval, right? This is gonna get the love and approval, and it still didn't. It really
Oh,
didn't, because that's not what it was about, really.
yeah, yeah.
But I ended up working with a bunch of homeless people with no insurance at the residency program I worked at. They
Hmm.
were all these like people that were like successful at one point, but had these huge falls in their life because of mental illness.
Yeah.
So devastating to sit with these people one after another in so much pain. Then they have you go into therapy. Part of your training is go into therapy and learn about yourself. Or like, holy shit, like it was like the Pandora's box opened.
Yeah.
That's all of my history started flooding open. It was really overwhelming to like start remembering being the abuse that I went through and all the stuff that happened to me growing up. So it
Oh, because
really
like talking to them and like unpacking all their issues like brought back your stuff.
totally, it
Yeah.
was like pain resonates with pain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're sitting with someone in pain, you feel it without even being consciously aware that, oh my God, I'm resonating with this. So
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean? People aren't aware of that when you're that's it's called empathic resonance, right?
Hmm.
You're empathically resonating with somebody, even if you don't have the same experience as them, you have the same feeling of betrayal, of loss, of being shamed, whatever it is, whatever your history is, can get activated when you sit with other people.
During a lot, okay, so like backtracking,
Yeah.
yeah, you went to college, all that. Backtracking during times of maybe being like a teenager, preteen, in difficult moments where you felt like not accepted or like lost or not maybe loved in certain ways, like what kept you strong? Like what was your like beacon of light?
It's a really great question. Most of my high school years and most of my college years, honestly, were about doing what I was supposed to do
For
and
others?
fitting in
Yeah.
and doing what other people. So I was always a good, quick study of like how to be popular, how to be successful. I was always watching other people. So I wasn't really living any life that was mine.
Mm.
But I had this drive of it was one I don't we we'll talk about resilience. I had this drive from a very young age, even in high school. I get up at 5 in the morning, the house was quiet, and I do my homework. Like I always wanted to achieve. No other kids in high school were doing this. They were screwing around, but I had a drive that I wanted to achieve. I don't know what it was. I wanted to get out of the house. I wanted to do better. And from a very early age, I always had that drive. In college, it was crazy. Kids would go out partying on Thursday night or like happy hour on Friday. And I'd go to the library and I'd be like, I have 3 more hours on everybody else who's drunk right now. Like I have this
Yeah.
internal drive in me that wanted to succeed. I didn't even know what it was. It was just this drive to succeed. So from a very early age, I had it, you know.
Question for you.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you dealt with your challenges growing up, perhaps maybe bullying, nasty comments, people just being assholes. Uh,
Yes. Yeah.
question. Where in which era would you have preferred to live? The one you grew up in or in today's, which is more open-minded?
Hell, not the one I grew up in. Hell
Yeah.
no. Like
But
that,
maybe
no
you wouldn't be
way.
who you are now, man.
I know. Well, so that I've learned through my healing journey. Like
Yeah.
now, honestly, Alex, I wouldn't change a thing because the impact I have on people is because of what I went through. Like
Yeah.
I can hold that now because I've healed a lot of my history. But it was horrible to, go through what I went through. Like it
Yeah.
was not a fun experience. Would I have liked to have had parents who'd be like, hey, if you play with the Barbie doll, no big deal, like you be you. You know what I mean? It was not even like the only thing I was interested in. I just had curiosity about it, right?
Yeah.
So I would rather have grown up now, probably because I wouldn't have. And it's hard to say, my father was a complicated man. You know, he drank a lot. He was trying to be successful to please his parents. His brother was a doctor. He was a pharmacist. So there was a lot of transgenerational trauma that was
Yeah,
going.
it drags a lot.
Totally, you know what I
Yeah, yeah.
mean?
Those
So if that
frustrations,
was
those,
still
yeah.
happening, right? If that was still happening, today I could still live that. A lot of people, suffer kind of transgenerational trauma, but it was weird. You know what was weird about it? Because I was suppressed. I married a woman. I went to college, like I did all the right things.
You married a woman.
I married a woman. I didn't come out until I was 32 years of age. So
Holy shit.
yeah, I did. I did all the right things. I
Oh,
did all the right things,
okay.
right? And it was weird, like because I married a
At
woman,
least you tried,
I
right?
did. I was like, all right, I was like, it ain't so exciting to me, but I guess this is what everybody's all about. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
But I missed the whole AIDS crisis bizarrely because I'm old, like I'm 60 years old, right?
Oh
And
my God, what
I'm 60 years old.
the hell
And
are you eating, man?
I,
Let me know.
you know what it is? It's all the healing I've done. I know
Yeah,
that now.
yeah,
I released so much of the stuff, right? But I missed the whole AIDS crisis because I was married to a woman and living this fake life. So I'm like, I'm alive today because I was suppressed and I was doing what I was supposed to do. So it's a weird paradox. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? It's a
yeah,
weird
yeah.
paradox. I didn't live through and I didn't die like so many people did who were gay in that time. So I missed the whole thing in some ways.
Do have you forgiven your father for like the mistakes that he made,
Yeah,
maybe unintentionally?
totally. Totally.
'Cause-
Yeah. Like the book, it's fascinating. I had no idea this was going to happen when I was writing this memoir. The last 4 chapters of the book, I wrote in real time. My dad got sick. He lives in Chicago. I live in Boston. I kept going back to help my mother take care of him, to help my sisters take care of him. So I had this incredible time with him as he was failing and dying. And I was healing in this way. Like it was an incredible experience. I could just feel this right now. Like the last words he said to me were, um, I may have not been the father you needed or wanted, but I
Mhm.
always loved you.
Yeah.
And it was like the message I needed my whole life, but he never said that until the end of his life. So it was this huge gift to me, you
It's
know.
almost like he always wanted to say it, you know?
He did.
Didn't
He
maybe know
he
how to.
exactly. That's exactly right. My
Yeah,
mom would always say to me, "He loves you. He loves you." And I was like, "Excuse me, but he's beaten me. What do you mean he loves me?" Right? So she
yeah,
knew he loved me, but he couldn't express it to me for all of what was about him, right?
yeah.
Not until his deathbed. So we had a huge moment together. Like I felt his love for the first time in that moment. That was
You
the
felt like
first
he saw
time.
you. Yeah,
He loved me. I was like, oh, he loves me. I felt it for the first time.
yeah,
So it was a huge moment. And I was able to forgive him because I did enough trauma healing. Like I was okay with myself, but now I knew that he was okay with me too, right? And
yeah.
so as he through his funeral and through the dying process, I was able to love him. So there was another gift. You know how powerful it is, Alex, to love somebody who's harmed you? Like
Yeah,
that's powerful. Like you don't hold anything anymore when you can love somebody who's harmed you. So I
yeah.
experienced that. Like that was an amazing gift to me.
Well, that also like in that moment, you were able to recognize it in that way because of all the work that you've done. Because if you
Exactly.
hadn't, maybe you would have reacted differently. Maybe somebody else would have reacted differently. Maybe in a negative way. Maybe like, oh, now you say it. You know what I'm saying? But you were
Yeah.
like, no, like this is the way it needs to play out
Yeah.
for him and for me, and maybe for the rest
Exactly.
of the family.
Totally, totally. And it's because of the work I did. Like I have been like I was in therapy as a little kid, but for
Hmm.
most of my life I've been in therapy. Like I've been working on myself, just like I was a good student getting A's all the time. I've always been bettering myself. Like going to therapy, healing trauma. You don't become a trauma expert for fun. Like, it's not
Yeah.
like, like I've always been working on myself. And so at that point, I was able, exactly what you said, receive that message differently because of the work I did. And that is what I want people to know about.
I feel like everybody should see help for
Yeah,
anything. Like
right.
it's necessary because sometimes there's things that are just fucking us up in the head and we haven't deciphered it yet, or maybe the people around us are so in it that they haven't figured it out yet. But maybe an
That's
outside
right.
perspective sometimes will help you see things a lot differently. And you might have a better positive outlook on life just by having conversations. It doesn't have to be a huge deal. Like I
Yeah,
myself see
yeah,
therapists and
exactly.
I'll try all types of shit.
That's right.
Energetic healers, MD,
Yes,
this, that, and I just try to be open-minded because there's always something back there that's
that's
not
exactly
totally
right.
right, you know?
You know, what we go through that's difficult blocks our authentic self.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, big or small, it blocks who we are. This is part of why the more I've healed, not only the younger I get, but the more I can really actualize my purpose. The more I
Yeah.
live my truth, I live my purpose. I'm here to bring trauma healing to the world, and I could do that because of all the roadblocks I've cleared. And I think that's true for anyone, right? Like, I'm successful because of the stuff I've cleared. I'm just me in the
Hmm.
most authentic, pure way. This is what I think is true for anybody. Like, people who are successful, from my perspective, have done enough work to be clean and clear and align with their purpose. And that paves the way, right, to kind of do whatever you're supposed to do here on this earth. Because I think we're all here for a purpose, big or small.
Hell yeah. So listen, Frank, as an
Yeah,
author and educator, you've obviously built a strong personal brand around trauma healing, right?
yeah.
So what strategies have you used to differentiate yourself and your work in a crowded market? And what advice can you offer to entrepreneurs looking to do the same in their specific fields?
I love this question. When I saw that question, I was like, damn, I want to answer this question, because there is you go on Instagram, you go on TikTok, any social media platform, there are a million healers out there. You want to, what's your purpose? Well, how are you going to manifest? Here are the 10 things to this. Like, in some ways, Alex, it drives me crazy that everybody and their brother now is coming in to be a healer. In other ways, I think it's amazing and fantastic. Like, the world needs this. Let's all show up, right? So I hold both views about it. The thing, I'm coming from it from a slightly different perspective, because I've been in the ivory tower. I am a highly educated, Harvard-trained psychiatrist who is crossing over to the general public. So I come from it in a different place. A
Mhm.
lot of these ivory tower people are not good speakers and can't convey a message in any way that's useful for
They're
the
just
general public.
regurgitating stuff sometimes, yeah, what they hear
And
from
you're
somebody else.
like, I can't relate. Like, hello, come down to earth, right? So I'm not like that. But the thing that I would say to people, like, big or small, whatever you are, whatever your platform is, like, get educated, right? You don't have to have a Harvard degree in order to speak about healing or speak about success. Like, I don't believe that, but do your homework. Don't just, this is my view, this is my opinion, right? Back it with something. Like, we're always learning, we're constantly learning. So if you want to help people, learn about it. There's enough information out there. So you're speaking from a place not only of personal experience, but also of educating. Like, I'm mentoring a lot of young social media influencers now, and they're young and they have huge platforms. And I think it's fantastic. They don't have 35 years experience like I do, but so what? They don't need it. They have charisma, they have a platform, and I'm just like, just keep learning and growing, and you will be somebody who's an expert because you have an audience, a base of people who are drawn to you. Use it to your advantage. You know what I mean? And I think there's a way for all of us to keep growing in that way. And like I said, everybody needs to jump on this wagon of helping, because the world is in trouble in a lot of ways. And the more people that step up to help, the better off we're all going to be. But
Yeah,
just,
we need good role models. We need good mentors, and
yes,
not just people that are maybe in the best place of their life, but maybe people who are also overcoming a major issue, but are going down the right path and seeing
you
those
got it.
results.
That's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. So, you don't have to be the world expert to help somebody, but, be open to learning and listening, and do your work. Like we said earlier, the more you clear the blocks in your life, the better you're going to be able to, the better you're going to feel, but also the more capable you will be to help people. I really believe that.
What is your main patient demographic? Is there anything that significantly stands out?
Yeah, most of the people that I work with, and my private practice is smaller now because I'm doing so much teaching. I'm working in LA. I have a film company. I have a trauma institute. It's a lot of things that are growing for me now in this bringing trauma healing to the world. But most of the people that I work with have what's called complex PTSD or relational trauma. So it's people that have grown up in dysfunctional, child families. Like your father was an alcoholic, your mother was depressed, you bullied, and then they repeat their dysfunctional patterns in their adulthood. They marry somebody, they have an affair, they're yelling at their kids. So it's the people that kind of repeat the patterns of their childhood. They're not really aware that the root cause of their problem is because of the way they were treated as a kid, because most of us suppress it. Like, move on, just forgive and move on,
Or
right?
you normalize, you just normalize, yeah.
Yes, that's exactly right. So those are most of the people that I work with. Many highly successful people who get stuck, like their business fails, their marriage fails, their kids don't want to see them because they haven't dealt with things, they've just suppressed them. So that's the main population that I work with.
Is there a general maybe exercise that somebody could do at home that could help them reflect upon some of these things and maybe even recognize that they are in one of these patterns?
It's a great question. And, this is very simplistic, but it can be very helpful. Like, I love this saying, when it's intense, it's yours. If you're having an intense reaction, we typically externalize. You're an asshole. You're a jerk. Look what you did to me. Anytime we have an intense reaction, it's because something inside of us has been activated. It's never about the other person. They've
Triggered you, yeah.
triggered us in some way. So I always have people stop, go inside, pay attention to the intensity, and then ask, when is the first time I had this feeling? When is the first time I had this feeling? Because it brings it back to the origins. And then you have perspective. You're like, oh, this person who just called me an idiot, they've got their own issues. I reacted strongly to them because I was called an idiot on the playground when I was a kid a lot. Oh, that's where that comes from.
You got bullied or some shit like that,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's going to always, any intense reaction is coming from somewhere else in you. And if you can stop and you can be with the feeling, because we're pushing it away, like go on social media, externalize, like be with it and find out when it first started, helps you begin to say, oh, maybe these reactions are related to something in my history. Because if you clear your history, you won't react that way anymore. This is what people don't understand. You get triggered because something in your past has been activated. If you clear that, you don't get activated anymore. Somebody's a jerk to you, you're like, you're bad, not mine. Sorry, you're having a bad day. I'm good. You
Yeah, you
don't
start peeling back the
personally.
layers and you start understanding things differently.
Yeah, and you don't take other people's stuff personally unless it activates your own stuff.
You know, on the on the way here, I was having so the studio I was at, they were power washing the windows right before our interview.
Yeah.
Loud ass, like power washing the windows. I'm like, really right when we're gonna do the interview with Frank. So anyways, I leave, I come here, whatever. I'm on my way here. Some guy's just beeping at me behind me, like,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck you, like,
Yes.
and then after a second, I'm like, no, it's not fuck you because he has nothing to do with me. He's
Right.
probably having a shit day, and I'm over
Right.
here like throwing bad vibes at him and bad vibes on myself. I just need to
Exactly.
chill. And
Yeah.
you know where it always brings me back to this book that I read by Michael A. Singer. He wrote The Surrender Experiment, and then he wrote this
Yeah.
other book that talks about like when you're at a red light or somebody's like cutting you off, don't give people that energy. Like it's not even about you. You don't know what they're going through.
Yes.
You don't know if their father died or if somebody treated them bad, somebody just beat them up, their wife cheated on them. Just it's about you, and you have to understand why you just reacted that way.
100%. That's exactly right. And that's the point. And if more of us did that, the world would be a very different place. If we
But
took
it's almost like we're
responsibility.
designed to like suppress trauma, be kept busy, think about this, think about that, and just like pile on and
Yeah,
on until we're a hot mess, and then we end up
yeah,
on a bunch of meds, and
exactly.
nobody understands each other. You know what I
That's
mean?
exactly right. That's what's happening. Like that is really kind of the cycle that we're going. And the more of us that can reverse that, the better off we're all going to be. That's exactly right.
What do you what do you recommend for the young boy, the young girl who's being bullied because of their sexual preference growing
Yeah.
up? What do you think is a good support system for them to hold on to and figure themselves out as they mature? Because as a human being, our brains don't develop fully until we're what, 23, 24, 25. So maybe at 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, we think we know shit, but we really don't.
Yes.
What do you think is a good support system for people before they get to that age? That way they like I don't know, like they could be traumatized less, they could feel like more support, more people
Yes.
hear them, see them. What do you see in your world that works?
Yeah, it's a great question because like everybody thinks, oh, it's so much different than it used to be. It's no big deal if you're gay anymore, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, people who are trans have problems, gay people don't because they're so welcomed in society and culture. That is not
It can appear
true
that way from outside in. It can
from
appear that way.
outside in. Yeah, but it's
For at
not
least for
true.
me, it appears that way.
Exactly, exactly. And the
Yep.
reality is that most kids who are struggling with sexual orientation feel a huge amount of shame. Huge percentages of them get suicidal. They have a huge mental health issues, way more than the average teenager. So the awareness for people like, hey, even if society is more accepting than it was 20 years ago, these kids are still struggling enormously, even if they're in accepting communities and accepting families. It's a personal struggle because from a very early age, when people don't even say something, just like I experienced, you're different and you think you're wrong. That is ubiquitous in everybody
Even
with,
if nobody tells you anything.
even if, well, look, you watch TV and you see Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. You see
Yeah.
we get messages even when nobody's trying to give these messages. Like boys play baseball, girls go dancing. You know what I mean? Like you just get these messages in culture and society that
Mhm.
are everywhere. There are everywhere. Do you know what I mean? So the world gives you messages even when you're in a supportive environment, and people need to be aware of that. It just happens. Who's your mommy? Who's your daddy? Like they don't have, there's not a lot of commercials or shows with two moms or two dads, right? Like it just is not normalized in the way, and kids just internalize this stuff. Like
Mhm.
I have two boys, they're 16 and 20, and I remember the school bus person, the school bus driver comes to our house when my son was in kindergarten and knocks on the door. She's like, Frank, I just have to tell you the most beautiful thing happened. The kids are going home for like April vacation. And someone says, where are you going with your mom and dad? And my son at 6 years old is like, I don't have two mom. I don't have a mom and a dad. I have two dads. Isn't that awesome? Like, what boy doesn't want two dads? Is what he says to the kids on the bus. And the
Mhm.
kids are like, wow, that is so cool, Logan. You're so lucky. And the bus driver stopped the bus, came up to our house and wanted to tell me that story. She's like, Frank, that was a beautiful story. Like your kid felt safe enough to say, hey, I have two dads. I don't have a mom and a dad. Like he was able to like speak of it. And the boys were like, oh my God, that's so cool. I wish I had two dads. Like that's unique. That's not what happens for most kids. So the thing I'll say to kids growing up, honestly, is there are resources out there online in other places outside of your community. Like we have access to resources and information internally that you didn't before because of internet and social media. So
Yeah.
there are healthy places to go. If you're growing up in the deep South or in a very conservative area where you're not welcome or you're not welcome in your family, you have access, right? You can have access now. I think it's
What do you
important.
think? What do you think is the biggest problem? Or maybe like not the biggest problem, Frank, but like the biggest miscommunication between between the LGBTQ community and conservatives.
Yeah, boy, that's what's the biggest. Um, here's the way I see it. The reaction of the conservative community
Yeah.
to the LGBTQ community is that you're stirring up my world and you're making
Oh, you're
me
like imposing? You're imposing?
uncomfortable. Yeah, who you are is making me uncomfortable because it's stirring up my worldview. Because of my history,
Uh-huh.
I need a view like this because it
Yeah.
helps me allow me to feel good and my life to feel good, whatever my history is, right?
Yeah.
And you're challenging these views that are outside the norm are challenging my safe, stable worldview. So you have to stop so you don't make me feel uncomfortable. You get
Yeah.
that?
I
There,
see what you mean.
there's a
And
way that the outliers make the norm, people who are
uh-huh.
struggling to fit into the norm, feel uncomfortable. Like, don't threaten my worldview. This is what I need in order to feel comfortable and safe and happy. Instead of like, you do you and I'll do me.
Yeah,
There,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying though.
yeah,
Like we are in America.
yeah,
Like I don't care your sexual
yeah,
preference. I'm sure you don't care
yeah.
about mine. Like,
No.
I care that you're a professional, you're helping
Yeah,
people, you're an author, like you're a great
yeah,
speaker. I don't care
yeah.
about your sexual preference, your private life, you know?
That's right. Exactly. Same to you. Like, right? Like it should be irrelevant,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah, yeah,
not because it makes people feel uncomfortable. I'll tell
yeah.
you the story. I have this. So I grew up in a very conservative family in the Midwest, super
Okay, yeah.
conservative. Most of my family members are conservative. My brother-in-law, this was a couple years ago, when my first book, Transcending Trauma, came out, we were at a wedding. We're sitting at breakfast in the hotel talking. He's like, tell me what your book's about. And I told him it's about trauma. He's never really kind of gotten along with me very well.
Mm.
And I started talking about my trauma history. He's always been like shaking my hand, but keeping a nice distance.
Yeah, you can tell.
I, you could tell, right? And I started telling him about my trauma history and everything. And all of a sudden, he started talking about being beaten up by his father. He's like, wow, Frank, I was beaten up by my father too. I loved my dad. There were six boys, and we got the shit beat out of us when we were a kid. He's like, I had no idea. Like, we bonded around our trauma histories. Like, I could
Mm.
be conservative. I mean, I could be liberal. He's conservative,
Because you
but
humanize your experience. It was more than
exactly.
sexuality at that point. It was like, this is who
Yeah.
I am.
And he identified with me and he was like,
Yeah.
wow, Frank, he connected. Like we connected around our pain. And he saw me in the way that he saw himself. He got up off the table after we had breakfast, hugged me for the first time ever, Alex. And he's like, hey man, you're doing good things for the world. Would you do me a favor and sign a copy of your book for me? Like it was an
For real?
amazing I swear to God, amazing
Nice.
moment, right? Like our political views didn't matter.
You disarmed them. You disarmed them because you had
Totally,
preconceptions.
yeah,
Probably had a bunch of opinions about you, and here you come and like, oh shit, he's a person and he's dealt with things, and I'm a person and I've dealt with things.
exactly. And that's what I feel like. That's my message for the world. Like we have much more in common than we do different.
Yeah.
Most people have been through some kind of overwhelming life experience, and most people have resiliency to try to overcome it, regardless of which side you choose to kind of represent yourself. That's irrelevant. Do you know
I
what I
guess we
mean?
just have to, like, Frank, understand the message, right? Because like there
Yeah,
will be conservatives that give everybody a bad
yeah,
rap because they're
totally.
dicks. And there's people in the LGBTQ community who do crazy fucking shit that doesn't
Yes,
identify with the other 98%. And we just
exactly.
have to learn how to like block out the noise and just understand the main message. And
Yeah,
like that will allow communications to be a lot better between everybody. And I'm not just talking about like sexual preference. I'm talking about race. I'm talking about
totally.
nationality in all aspects because
You
there's
got it.
bad people on both sides giving everybody else a bad rap. And there's also somebody on the other side trying to rile up the bad people on the other side just to make the other side look bad. That's how it works.
100%. I totally agree with you. Like
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
So
Love
look,
that.
trauma can be a profound impact on individuals, including entrepreneurs and creatives, right? So from your expertise, how can understanding and addressing personal trauma contribute to better entrepreneurial or even creative outcomes?
Totally. Like I think these people, and I watch it, some of these people that are rising and are really kind of having impact, you can see they're going to crash and burn because they're not really rising on a solid foundation. They're kind of rising on an unstable found, like it's a house of cards. Like you can go only so far, and
Hmm.
your history will
Come
get the
back.
best of you, and it will come back. And the best thing I can tell people is clean and clear your path so that you can rise from a pure place, right? I think about the unburdened leader, right? What do your work so that you're gonna come across haters, you're gonna come across people that are gonna try to put you down, people that don't agree with you, like that's part of the norm. But if you've done your work, if you're clean and clear, you're gonna be able to rise above it and let it be about them instead of you. Like the success that I have is bizarre because, well, the reason I think it's bizarre is because I'm not making it happen. The more healing I do, the more honestly I attract a high vibration of energy of people who are equally trying to do good things. So it's like the more I clear myself, the more I align with people who are clean and clear. It's like attracts like. If
Hmm.
you're pissed off, if you're angry, if you're trying to screw people to get ahead, that's what you're going to attract.
Yeah.
If you're pure, if you're doing it for good intention, more of that's going to come your way. So do your work, heal your history so that you're helping from a clean, clear place. It's only going to get better from there. It's like the more you do, the more you'll receive. That's the way I've experienced my life and my success. I never thought I'd be here today in the position that I am, but it's the more that I clear, the more shows up to me. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's same thing happens with money. I used to be fearful of money and be in this position of paucity and I don't have enough. When I actually let go and it's like, you know what? I am going to do the best I can. I'm going to be honest and I'm going to help people with a pure heart. And I'm not going to worry about the money anymore. I actually started getting more financial success.
Yeah, because it's almost like because like you're thinking about it and you're putting stress on it. So then
Yeah.
therefore like there's stress around it, so it's not going to flow because you
That's what's
bad
going to,
vibe on it.
you're going to attract the stress. The more stress you have about it, the more stress that's going to show up. So the more I clear myself around money, the more freedom and flow of money there is. And it was a very hard lesson for me. Like letting go and trusting makes you more financially successful. Like that's not what we learn in business school. Do you know what I mean? But it actually
He's
is
like, what do
then
you mean let go? I gotta get to work.
yeah, I got to try harder, to get
Yeah.
more is actually an energy that's counterproductive.
Yeah.
I got to open up and receive the best so that I can give. I got to open up and give the best so that I can receive the best. And that was
Yeah.
a hard lesson for me to learn, but I really live that way now. I
I
really
think
do.
that's my like one of the biggest things I struggle with because I've accomplished like I mean in my
Yeah.
own right and in my own category I feel that I've accomplished a lot. But
Yes.
then again, I'm always putting like heavy pressure on myself. Like, well, you could be
Yeah.
doing this, or you could be helping this person, you could be helping that person. It's kind of like a race.
Yeah.
Um,
That's right.
and then like no matter what accomplishment comes, then it's always another thing, and it's always another thing,
Right.
which leads to my
Yep.
next question, right?
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship, like it could be a roller coaster of highs and lows.
Yes.
A lot of highs, a lot of lows, maybe less highs.
Yes.
Based on your understanding of trauma and resilience, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs on managing their mental health,
Yeah.
while navigating the challenges of building and growing a business, or even people who work freelance, you know?
Totally. The thing that I love, the thing that I really do now, and I've kind of always done it, but not to the same degree, is really take advantage of every moment, right? Every moment is an opportunity for growth. And I really believe that. Like, I think there's three things we can do when we're faced with something. We could repress it. I don't need that. We could repeat it. Here we go. This is the third time I tried to do this thing and I fucked up the third time in a row. So we repeat, we repress,
Hmm.
or we learn and grow from it.
Okay.
So adversity is really hard. And it's hard to stay in the discomfort of adversity. But if you can really trust that there's a lesson for me in this, that I'm presented this because there's something here for me that I need to learn and grow from, then you'll be able to truly, what I say is elevate to the next level of achievement and accomplishment. And
Yeah.
if I look now, like this book is coming out in May. Alex, 2 years ago, there's no way I would have been ready for what's coming. I mean, they're talking about the movie rights. Like, there's big things. It's going to be a New York Times bestseller. I've got this big PR firm. I was not ready for this 2 years ago. I had stuff that I needed to work out. And I can look back. I was in relationships with people, mentors that weren't very healthy for me. And I had to get out of those relationships in order to show up clean and clear for this next round of achievement. Do you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So
Yeah, I get.
I didn't know it at the time, right? But I was faced with a lot of adversity and I was like, oh, that's why I had all that adversity, because it actually prepared me in a different way now to handle what's coming, because I wouldn't have been ready 2 years ago. So take advantage of every moment, even if it seems like a setback, even if it feels really shitty, it actually is an opportunity for growth in ways that you often don't know at the time that you're in the difficulty. You don't
So
get
it's
the
almost like if we could like make a long story short, it's almost
yeah.
like analyze your day to day, analyze your problems, and rather than placing blame on yourself, on others, or suppressing it, just take a moment to just shut up and think. Put your phone down and
Learn
think
from it.
about why it's happening.
Learn from it. Like, it's always another damn growth opportunity is what I say with my friends. They're like, oh goody, another fucking growth opportunity. But it
Yeah,
really is. It
yeah.
really is. If you can hold that mindset, then you deal with it from a different place and you actually learn something from it. And I think
Frank,
that's super important.
Frank, how do you want to be remembered?
Ooh, I want to be remembered as a good father, as a good husband, and someone who had a global impact on the world in regards to trauma healing.
I like that order. I like the order of that.
Yeah, that's what
I
it is.
know because of your challenges, it must be extremely, extremely, extremely important for you to be a good father and be a support system for your boys. It
Yeah,
must be awesome to have two boys and know that they are your project, right? To make sure that you guide them correctly, you teach them correctly, you steer them away from maybe thoughts or experiences that you had, and even if they do have them, you help them through it. That has to be amazing. And obviously, them seeing that not only are you saying it, you're talking, but you're walking, right? That's
that's right.
also a very big important thing.
That's exactly right. And I have learned, and this is really the truth, I learned more from my kids than I have from anybody else in my life.
Mm,
Like, they brought me to my knees like nobody else has, more than my father, interestingly enough. I
mm.
learned more from my kids and from my father. They have helped me grow more than anything else. And I know my father to son, son to father, like, I know it's all transgenerational, but it's been a hugely profound impact for me.
Frank, where can we find you on socials? Like, where are you most active?
Yeah, most active right now is on Instagram,
Okay.
Frank_Anderson MD on Instagram. I'm joining the TikTok wave. I'm on Facebook. My website is frankandersonmd.com, and there you'll find where I talk, where I speak, a lot of stuff about the book and everything like that. So those are
And
the
the
best.
book, of course, on the same site.
Yeah, book is on the same site. It's pre-ordered on Amazon right now, so could certainly get To Be Loved or now coming out May 7th.
All right, y'all, you heard it. This is Alex Quin on the Hustle Inspires Hustle podcast. Don't forget that Dr. Frank Anderson has To Be Loved, A Story of Truth, Trauma, and Transformation, launching on May 7th, 2024. If you like the story, if you feel like you could learn from it, if you feel like you want to be part of it, check out the book. On the show notes of whatever app you're listening to right now, we're going to link the book, his social medias, everything we talked about, or you could go to hustleinspireshustle.com/podcast, find our episode. And of course, you could probably bombard him with questions on Instagram. He seems to be active and wanting to help. So go for it. Hey, Frank, thanks so much for joining us, man. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love this conversation and I love the work that you're doing in the world. So thank you. It's been
Thanks a
great.
lot, man. God
Yeah.
bless.